Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax bill.
Calling for a full repeal of President Trump's tax cuts.
If Kamala Harris was elected president, there are many different tax policies which could cripple the economy. But the first thing she wants to do is allow these Trump tax cuts to expire.
Even the New York Times admits that 85% of the middle class got a tax cut.
Americans will face a hike. The Tax Foundation finding that a couple with 2 kids making $165,000 a year would have to pay over $2,400 more in taxes.
And on day one, I will repeal that tax bill. Joe Biden and I are about to work to get rid of that tax cut. Joe and I are about to get rid of that tax bill. Joe Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax cut.
Everything from a 70 to 80% tax rate.
I think that's fantastic. We've got to increase the corporate tax rate. Part of that is going to be about repealing that tax bill that they just passed. And also looking at estate taxes are going to have to go up. We will tax capital gains, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes.
Taxing unrealized gains just doesn't seem fair in any sense of the word.
When the value of your home goes up, you pay higher taxes even if you don't sell your home.
Your value of your home never moves the way the stock moves to say, we're going to tax what you don't have. That's a sore point, and it's a big deal. Is that something you think she firmly believes in?
I think it's part of the proposals of the campaign.
Under my plan, there will also be a carbon fee. There has to be some connection between the fee and bad behaviors, and there has to be, in that we have to monitor whether it's going to be passed on to consumers. But I'm going to tell you that should never be the reason not to actually put a fee, and in particular, a carbon fee.
By the way, Border Patrol endorsed me last week, gave me the strongest endorsement. And in the endorsement, they said she's the absolute worst, and you cannot let her become. You had to see their endorsement. I like the second part even better than the first. She's the worst. But they've taken over, this gang has taken over Times Square in New York City. Let's take a look.
Open borders, deadly consequences.
Border crisis. Record high crossings are putting a strain on cities across America.
It is a full-blown invasion.
Armed Venezuelan gang members storming an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado.
When people talk about migrant crime, this is what they're talking about.
San Antonio, Texas, just one of the latest cities to have apartment complexes taken over by members of the Venezuelan gang.
Biden and Harris had created a program to bring them in under humanitarian parole.
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been released into the United States.
My 20-year-old daughter, Kayla Hamilton, was murdered in her own room. Kayla's murderer was apprehended by Border Patrol crossing illegally into the U.S.
Kayla's murderer had been improperly released into the United States.
Abolish ICE. Yeah, we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
More than a dozen people suspected of being Tren de Aragua gang members right here in San Antonio.
The gang members had been terrorizing the apartment complex.
New details in the murder of Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national.
And was paroled and released into the country by the Biden administration.
If they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
Martinez and Angel wrapped his arms around Jocelyn's neck, took off her pants, and climbed on top of her. Later strangled Jocelyn to death and then tied up her hands and feet.
Court documents suggest a group of men arrested for beating and robbing a Dallas woman last month are members of a Venezuelan street gang.
The men threatened to cut off her fingers if she did not cooperate. Manuel Hernandez was booked by Colleyville police just 2 days earlier and released the day before the robbery.
A Peruvian gang leader who is wanted for 23 murders. He was arrested by Border Patrol near Roma, Texas, then released into America.
And she said, I wouldn't do anything different. That means she can't run. Take a look.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
An Afghan national is in custody today after being accused of plotting an election day terrorist attack. The suspect entered
entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa.
Gut-wrenching new details in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national who crossed the unsecured southern border back in 2022.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
A fifth illegal immigrant accused of attacking 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Only 18% say the economy is in excellent or good condition.
U.S. inflation has hit a new 40-year high, increasing by 9.1% over the financial year.
Authorities saying Train de Aragua, which has been linked with more than 100 criminal investigations here in the U.S., has now been found operating its criminal enterprise in apartment complexes.
Were you the last person in the room? Yes.
So, nobody really knew her, but now they're learning her and her polls are crashing. She is crashing.